Bam, off to a great start already. What's up, everybody? Local Music Monday. How are you? I hope you're enjoying your Monday. Thank you for joining along. You can follow along on all Disruption Network social media platforms, and it's wrapped up into a podcast that you can listen to whenever the hell you want at disruptionnetwork.net. We got new digs today, whole new setup in the studio. Shout out to Todd Williams for always making it look great in here. There's always a change. There's always something going on, and Todd's the mastermind behind all of that. We are lucky that we have him. So you will see that new setup in just a few seconds. Before I give some love to my sponsors, I got to give love to EJA Moving Services, the professional movers. When you're ready to move and relocate, hit up Eddie and his great staff at 315-335-0516. EJAmoving.com is where you can find them on the World Wide Web. They pretty much will move anything for you, and they give you free boxes, and they pack your boxes, and then they move your boxes, and then they drop your boxes off, and also they unpack your boxes. They're just amazing people, and they got a lot of boxes, let me tell you. They're full of boxes, and they give them to you for free. These other moving services do not give you guys free boxes, but EJA gives you free boxes. They're awesome. I love Eddie and his crew. 315-335-0516. Also, shout out to my attorney, Dave Longaretta. Give him a call today if you need legal advice, 315-735-6162. Thank you to Utica Coffee, Saranac Brewery, and a new sponsor to the D. Shout out to my good friend Matt Grabsky over at Joey's 307 Mohawk Street, an amazing Italian place. It's a legendary place, and I'm glad that Matt is carrying these traditions of Joey's. They got amazing seafood dishes, a revolving dinner menu. They got lunch specials. Go check them out. Amazing spot. Joey's 307. Thank you to Matt for believing in the D. And also got to make mention, too, we released the Danny Nappy Unbreakable podcast today. You can find it on all Disruption Network podcast platforms. So I'm looking forward to hearing some response on that. We dropped it today. So let me know what you people think. The Danny Nappy Unbreakable podcast. It was one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on. So Justin Smithson in the house with me. It is Local Music Monday, and look what he has there. Look at that. Isn't that a thing of beauty? Congratulations, buddy.
You too, brother.
The thing is heavier than you thought.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I was hoping you were going to cut to me quick because it was getting heavy.
Actually, I was going to cut to you quick, but for some reason, the names are screwed up when I go to the single camera. So I was like, no, I'm not going to. No, you're getting. If I would have put that camera up, it would call you Missy.
Oh.
You're not a Missy.
No, definitely not.
No. How was your gig with Fritz this weekend?
Oh, my God, man. It was one of the top 10 gigs of my life.
Yeah?
Hands down, yeah. Those guys are great. They're fun. And we had a nice car ride down. It was just, we got to chill and hang out a little bit and, drink some beers and play some polka.
You rode in like a bus or van with those guys?
I rode in a van, and the ongoing joke with Home Alone and like all that stuff with John Candy traveling in the back of the polka van, that whole thing. It was, we were breaking balls about that. So
that's awesome.
That was good, but I had to learn like 37 polka tunes in a week. And it was like I mean, once I got the hang of it, because it's different. Like it does two chord progressions. It's one chord progression, second chord progression, back to the first one. Sometimes back to the second one, or just end. And so I just had to chart it out that way so that I knew where it was gonna go. And once I had it down, it clicked halfway through the week. I'm like, I got this. All right, we're good.
It's the same progression, same tempo, right? Pretty much.
So yeah, for some of them, but I mean, he's playing different stuff on the accordion, and let me tell you, that Fritz rocks, man. I'm telling. I mean, he's got a pedal board. Mm-hmm. I mean, an accordion player with a pedal board, and it was just the coolest thing in the world. And he played this thing called a button box, and it was
oh yeah,
and it doesn't have the keyboard on it. It has buttons, but when you have to make sure rhythmically when you're pulling out and pushing in on the button box, because if you pull out, it's one chord, but as soon as you come back in, it changes chords, almost like a harmonica when you go back and forth. And he was playing that like it was nothing. I'm like, man, this guy, it was just insane.
Borgia wants to know if you know the pierogi shuffle.
If that's a polka, I could probably get myself through it now. I'm happy to say.
It is Local Music Monday, and joining us all the way from the sunny beaches of Hawaii.
So jealous.
I'm so jealous of them, right now.
I got family there, too.
Do you really?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We got to go visit
I know.
them. Let's go.
If I can go down there and stay with them, then I can hang out with Mark.
Yes.
It'd be great.
Mark Werchowski joining us today. Mark, good to see you, bud. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you guys.
I know it's 5 in the morning in Hawaii right now.
That's the luck. So you asked me how many hours when we set this up. I said 5, and then we had daylight savings time, and it's like that was going to be in my sweet spot. At 9:30, I'm caffeinated. I'm ready to go.
Sure.
Then it's like 8:30. All right. No.
Does anybody ever wake up before 10 o'clock in Hawaii? I mean, it's paradise. So why would you have to, right?
Only if you got to go work, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's we're usually up around 8, but that doesn't mean that you're ready to form sentences.
Exactly.
At 8.
Yeah.
What's your day like in Hawaii? You get up, are you walking around on the beaches? You taking in the sights? Like how you living your life down there in Hawaii?
I haven't seen you guys in person in a while, either one of you, but I don't want you to hate me, but I'll tell you anyway.
No, so we never hate you.
We usually get up and have something to, check in on the electronics, have some coffee, have a little something to eat. You have to reserve time at the pool here because of COVID, so you can't just go down to the pool.
Right.
So then we have a standing pool time and we swim. And then when the sun starts to set, we take our convertible and we go down to the beach and we walk a couple miles. And then we usually go get some poke or something to eat and come home and watch Barney Miller. You were saying you liked that theme song the other day. That's been my routine lately.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's it.
So are you playing it all down there? Are you doing anything solo or any open mic nights or something?
So I shipped a couple of my guitars here because I had a little Taylor GS. But I have, like you, Justin, you play for a while, you get some nice instruments.
Sure.
And I would come out here, and that would be, besides my grandkids and my daughters, that I would miss that, So this time I had Mark ship out a couple, made me a wreck.
Oh, sure.
But I shipped a couple of guitars. They came in, not the boxes weren't even dented.
Oh, great.
So I got a couple guitars. But there's really, I was saying to Z before, there's no gigging going on out here because they've been super strict about the quarantine and COVID. So there's a couple guitar stores here that are really cool. One in particular, Island Guitars.
Yeah.
So I kind of keep up a little because the guy that runs that, he sort of does what we do back there here. Like he's part of the history of Honolulu.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So he's, but a lot of clubs have closed.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when I bought a car here last year, the guy that sold it to me, the guy that ran the dealership, was telling me, there's this one place you got to go. My wife's in a band. Everybody goes there. It's called Gordon Biersch. And about 3 weeks later, they closed. And this was before the pandemic.
Man.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was one of the main places for bands to play.
Yeah.
But, I think when this thing ends, it's going to be a little iffy. But I think you're going to see some stuff blow up because people are ready to go.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about that. There's been a couple of times that, and I won't name any names or names of bars or anything like that, but there's been a couple gigs that I played recently that, we're at 75% here in New York, and it was probably at about 150%, I would say, and it's kind of scary, but I mean, I have to say that everybody was behaved. It wasn't like a thing where it's just a free for all. I mean, people were waiting until they sat down to take out their masks. If they stood up, they put on their masks. They did the whole thing. Everybody's using the hand sanitizer on the table, stuff like that. But there was a lot of people. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that are just itching to get out so much that they almost don't care anymore, or they're vaccinated. You know what I mean? And they feel comfortable enough to be out around that many people. But it's nice to see that even in greater numbers like that people aren't treating it as a free for all. They're still being safe and careful, which is good. But
yeah, I'm amazed that people have sat still this long. I mean, knowing the people that I grew up with, everybody's been really, really good. I mean, when you look at it, there's always a few, but people, I think, even, when I first put the mask on, like everybody else, I still don't quite understand a lot of what's going on and all the misinformation we get. Yep. But I remember saying, I'll wear the mask, I'll play along, and I still don't know how effective they are. But if it does help, then we should all do it. And I think people have that same attitude. So, but I do think you're right. I think people have had it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me, I know, for myself personally, like, I I play a lot of bars, play a lot of restaurants, and I care about the people that I play with. I've forged friendships with a lot of bar owners and restaurant owners and stuff. And I've seen firsthand what happens to a bar if somebody doesn't wear a mask. Like, how ass backwards is this that I walk into your bar, okay, without a mask on, and somebody from the Department of Health happens to be there, I still get to go home and, you know, wash my hands and go to bed and wake up with my family the next day. That bar owner gets raked through the coals, gets fined $10,000, all because I chose not to wear a mask there. So even if you're not wearing, like I say to everybody, if you're not going to wear a mask for you, at least wear it for the bar. Because if you like patronizing your local watering hole, think about if it was closed. You know what I mean? And think about what you're doing to their family. You know what I mean? And that's just that's all along.
That's a tough racket. I mean, I ran a bar for a friend for a while.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me. I did it for about a year and a half, and I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to do a lot. So the guys that are keeping you guys working, like, I watch this show from out here, and I hear where you're playing. It's like, God bless those people, man. I mean, big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know, you see what these guys are doing in the bars too. They're they're putting the tape down, they're putting the signage that they need to put up, and they're complying. And that's the thing. And it's like, if I guess that if it was a normal world and I was in the Department of Health or the Liquor Authority or whatever, and I walked in and I see all these signs up and what they're trying to do, and seeing how, like, you actually see the bar owners now behind the bar, like they're bar backing because they can't afford to have a certain number of people on, so they're bar backing or they're taking shifts at the bar. And I mean, stuff gets the point where you're trying to talk to somebody and your mask slips below your nose, and if you're the Department of Health or State Liquor Authority, bam, you're nailed right there. You know what I mean? And it's just, there's so much going on, and it's so hard and difficult for these guys. And I'm just glad that a lot of these guys are still going right now, because there's been a lot of people closing, so like you said, Gordon Biersch, even that's a chain, you know what I mean? There's Gordon Biersch, right, that shuts down, so
absolutely no, it's definitely better days are coming, man.
Hell yeah.
Hey, Mark, prior to the Corona Coaster, what's the scene like? What's the local music scene like in Hawaii? Because when I think Hawaii local music, I'm thinking a lot of reggae. I'm thinking kind of like that kind of atmosphere. Is it multi-genre, or what's the scene like out there?
When I first came out here, my uncle had all these cassette tapes that he wanted me to digitize. Because I made the mistake of buying him an iPod, and he goes, "Okay, now can you digitize these 200 songs?" I'm like, "Oh, shoot." So here I am on my hands and knees. I dig out my cassette deck out of my garage, and I'm, and I did it. And the best way I can describe it to you, I would say, and this is a cool thing, that Honolulu is about like Central New York, but 20 years ago.
Oh wow!
Really?
Yeah, like they definitely love their reggae. I mean, I can go to the beach and somebody will drive by and I'll hear Marley playing, or a lot of the local music is reggae influenced. There's definitely a different vibe. People are so relaxed here. But there's a pretty big punk scene before the COVID thing.
Oh, wow.
There used to be a couple of rock clubs downtown. And the great thing is we get a lot of performers out here that just want to come to Hawaii. Like Hall & Oates are coming back, I think, in November.
Yeah.
And there's a guy named Henry Capono who's a legend around here. And he's playing every week, actually, at this place called Duke's, which is a real popular bar down in Waikiki. And he'll do it all. Like, he amazes me. Like, he's been doing this since the 60s. Wow. And I'll tune in. I'll send you guys the link. You got to check him out. But he'll open, like he'll do Pride and Joy, or he'll do Drift Away, or he'll do some modern stuff. He has his own albums out. He used to have a national deal in the 70s with a partner of his. But people will go down, and it's all people like you and me that are out here on vacation. They brought a pocket full of money. They're ready to have a good time, Yeah. Drinks are $15. That's all right. Bring 4 more, They're just in that frame of mind. And it's always a good time. But I'm amazed. One day I see he plays Freebird, and it's like, I can't even remember the last time I heard Freebird in a bar.
Right, right.
I mean, I've heard somebody yell it, but I've heard nobody play it.
So I got to ask, like, you're talking about like drinks being $15 and stuff like that. Like, is it kind of like if you go to New York City, okay, and you're down in Times Square, you're paying $15 a beer. But if you go, 4 or 5 blocks east or west, you're finding some bars that are off the beaten path and stuff. Like I found a bar, I can't even remember where it was now in the city, that was still in Manhattan, but it was like $4 beers. You know what I mean? And it was like, it's where the tourists wouldn't go. So I mean, is there places like that in Honolulu that you can get to, and you yourself, if you're living there, can have a couple drinks and not worry about breaking the bank?
Absolutely. So anything that's on the beach, you're going to pay a premium.
Yeah.
So that place, Duke's, I mean, you're literally sitting on the beach.
Oh, God.
So, I mean, you can't even imagine what the rent is there, right?
Oh, no.
But, yeah, definitely you crawl in a couple blocks into Waikiki, and there's places that'll, you can get a drink for $3-4, just like you said. So, yeah, there's local places, and it's the same with food. Food can be crazy expensive. Like there's a cheesecake factory down in Waikiki.
Yeah.
And, and I remember looking at the menu in the one in Syracuse, and that was crazy expensive. Never mind in Honolulu.
Sure.
But then you can go. There's mom and pop places. Like we just went to a place called the Rainbow Drive-In, and you get what's called they call it a plate lunch. But I mean, it's a lot of food. I mean, it'll fill up a Central New Yorker for like $10.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Because you eat different. Like I know, like I've lost 12 pounds since I came out here since January.
I bet.
Yeah.
But I'm walking. I'm outside. I'm not stuck inside. Like it's hard at home in the winter.
Yeah.
And what do? You eat, and maybe you drink a little too much. Like that Dave Matthews song. Too much.
Yeah, too much. Exactly.
Too much.
You lost that 12 pounds because you're not intaking all that pasta dishes that we have here in Central New York.
True.
Right?
Now I got to tell you, it's funny because when you started the show, you mentioned Joey's. And I used to teach at Conklin School on Mohawk Street.
Oh, yeah.
And when he used to be up the street on Mohawk, right? And then he moved down. And that was a hazard for me going home because Joey's was right on my way home.
Yeah.
So there's the green, there was some pickup orders going on there. So
sure.
I missed that.
Definitely. We are blessed to have such a great food culture here in Utica.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
Absolutely.
our cholesterol's not blessed in our fat intake, but
everything has its price, man.
You know it.
Mark, you were the first guest to ever send a bio on Local Music Monday, and you got which was great. And I read over it a couple days ago, going through it, and what an extensive music career you had. I never knew some of the stuff that you actually were in. First of all, I never knew you were a Berkeley grad. I never knew you went to Berkeley, which was awesome. Talk about your experiences going to Berkeley and what was that like? And I'm sure you come across a couple ex-Berkeley grads that have made it in the big time, because there usually is.
Okay. So I've been watching your show the last couple of weeks. I even kept caught up on a couple, and I got the 15-page resume thing last week, and I'm out here like. Now,
love it.
Am I taxing these guys, sending them reading material or what? So,
we had to break balls. We had to break balls.
I got it. So the reason I sent that to you is, one, I know that you guys don't know some of the stuff I did. So I had to I'm scratching my memory, getting it in order. But I thought, if these guys ask me what year I did this, I don't know. I'm going to have to sit here and scratch my head. So that's why I timelined it out for you. But the Berkeley thing, I'm like our buddy Sam Kinninger. I didn't graduate. Most people don't graduate, right?
Right. Sure.
John Mayer didn't graduate. Juliana Hatfield didn't graduate. Brad Whitford didn't graduate. But I'll tell you what. There's two things about Berkeley. The first thing is, if you want to get humbled, the year I went, there were 1,200 guitar players. And I'm telling you, 200 of them were fucking monsters.
Yeah.
Excuse the language.
No, you can.
And you walk in at 18 or 19 years old, and you got in, you had a few bands, you're feeling pretty good about yourself, and then you go up there and I saw a kid that was 18 from Long Island the year I went, and he was playing Al Di Meola note for note.
God.
Yeah, and I was like, I wonder how much I could get for my stuff. It's like you're just ready to
Right.
And then the year I was there, Little Feat was huge, Steely Dan was huge.
Oh yeah, what a time!
When
to
I
be
came
there.
up in, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I guess I'll be learning some harmony and some new chords, right, with the Steely Dan stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I started playing in bands, Journey was big and Van Halen was big. So you had everybody butchering Eruption and trying to scream out songs they couldn't sing. So it was a tough time.
Yeah.
but Berkeley was a good experience. I went for a year. My dad paid for the first semester. I took loans out for the second semester. I think it took me about 20 years to pay that off.
Sure.
Wow.
But it centered me, and you realize I just got to do me. I can't worry about what everybody else is doing because life's not long enough, right?
Sure.
So you start finding yourself a little bit, and in that way, if it doesn't crush you, it's a really positive experience.
Yeah.
And I came back and then got to it, and started bands, and that's when it all really started for me. But so I went for like 2 semesters.
Wow. That's still, I mean, just to be there and be part of that scene, like you were saying, Steely Dan was huge at that point, and I mean, I always tell Z, and I tell all my guests, I grew up in the wrong decade because like the music that I listened to all came out in the late 60s, early 70s, and into the beginning of the 80s. You know what I mean? That's like my time, for music, and to be able to grow up when that was all happening it would have just been insanely awesome. But. At least I can still carry it on, and we still got the drive, 92.7 to drive up here, just jamming out with it, so
yeah,
that's good.
They're still carrying the flag.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, in a way, those artists, outside of the fact that they're all starting to pass away, they've really kind of benefited from radio going sideways and music going sideways because there are no new Aerosmiths, there's no new Steely Dan.
No.
And that doesn't mean there's not people out doing things that are that interesting or that developed, but the audiences now are so splintered.
Yeah.
Like when I grew up, I remember when OUR came on, it was like, what's this?
Yeah, sure.
They're playing Hendrix on the radio. It's like, that was a magical time.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's on their phone or Spotify or whatever. It's just a different reality.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I can't even listen to OUR anymore either because I think that they have like a 4-hour program now. It's like a 4-hour playlist, and then it repeats again. You know what I mean? And it's the same A-sides. There's no I like listening to Joe Trissolino over there, Genesee Joe on the drive because they're playing B-sides, especially the Doc's radio show. He's playing really really different stuff, but stuff that you wouldn't normally listen to on the radio, and stuff that, back when it was cool to buy an album and listen to the entire thing. You know what I mean? It's like you're not just going on Spotify and Apple Music anymore and being like, I like that song, and you just get that one song and you listen to it over and over again until you find the next thing. I loved how music back then was about, listening, and that's why I still do that. I still get an album and I'll listen to the entire album. Yeah. Not just one song, because I think that's important, and I think that's where we lost a music a little bit too, is that, that need for that constant, I need it now thing, you know what I mean? I want it right now, and I just want that, and then the next thing comes along. Ooh, that's, it's like squirrel. It's like a countrywide ADHD, you know what I mean?
We definitely live in an ADHD world for sure.
I remember when Levine bought OUR, and we were playing something. I think I'm going to say late 80s. I have to look at my resume. Hold on. Anyway, so
90s. He bought it in the 90s.
Yeah, was it the 90s?
I think it was late 90s or
2000s.
Yeah.
So I think I put my solo CD out, and we were playing Hannah Park down by City Hall, and one of the DJs from OUR was there, and I remember they were broadcasting the radio station before we played over the PA, and then I heard him do a drop, and I'm standing there looking right at him. It's like, what? How they go in and they do all the drops. Everything, like you say, is on computer. And radio stations that are the guys actually sitting there. Yeah, it's refreshing. This is I've even resisted the phone thing. I had an iPhone for a while. Yeah, but I just I don't want to be a fossil, but I don't want to be owned by that thing either. Sure. So yeah, I think, hopefully you'll see people go back, to appreciating, things that are right in front of them instead of things that are on Amazon Prime, right?
Right. It showed us all what we were taking for granted, before,
Definitely.
I guess, yeah.
On that note, I got to say, when Jenny and I went to Los Angeles, and the band Dillinger moved to Los Angeles, we went out every night for a week because I said, I want to see what's out here. Yeah. So we went to the Roxy, and Madonna and Sean Penn passed us in the street. I mean, it was an electrifying time.
Yeah.
But, the one thing I found out is all the best musicians were from Central New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an eye-opener to go 3,000 miles and find out, a lot of these guys can't really play. And then I go see Paul Androsa, and it's like the best guitarist on the Strip at the time, not recognized, not getting the credit due. I mean, but that's part of being a musician. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But yeah, the level of musicianship where we come from is almost a little dangerous because there's a ceiling and you can only go so far.
Right.
And especially when we were playing, in the 80s and 90s, there were a lot of bands. And now, like, it seems like the watermark, it was before, like, is which bands get into the gig, which bands get into the casino. Because, I know people that have tried to get gigs up there, they're called for a year. They can't get a call back.
Sure.
So that's sort of one of the marks. But back then, it was which clubs you played, which bands had front and back lighting, which bands had a big PA, which bands had a big poster, which bands had a truck, which bands were willing to go, 5 hours to play a gig. It was competitive. It's competitive now, but in a different way.
Sure.
You brought up being out in L.A. with Dillinger, and so you and Androsa were in L.A. around the same time?
Okay, so I could kind of blame a lot of my life on Androsa in a good way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Throw under the bus.
No. I think the world of them. But here's the arc of my life, and this is a little crazy, but so I'm 15. I'm in a band with a guy that's a drummer, and his name's Kevin Haynes. He lives in Nebraska now, and he had a car. Now, you know what that's like when you're 15 and somebody else can drive. Mm-hmm. So we go to 4 Acres, and I start seeing this whole world. And I see the Frogs, and the place is wall to wall. And these guys are so spontaneous on stage. And that's something I kind of miss about bands now. Because, 805, when they would bring a boa constrictor out in a club,
Sure.
Or the flash pots would go off and, Porter would turn in, from a young man to an old man when your eyes cleared up, that level of showmanship. But the Frogs, they didn't have any of that. They were just the best ball busters in the world.
Sure.
So you'd go hear all your favorite tunes, and these guys were outrageous to watch. I mean, just cry laughing. And I went to 4 Acres, and at this time I'm playing guitar, badly, of course. And I see Androsa in this band, and I'm like, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Nothing about record deals, I just want to be able to walk into a room and make everybody in that room feel like I do right now.
Yeah.
Because it was that exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of started me playing and started me having that drive. I would be the guy that would go up to Phil and the Flyers and go, how's that fog machine work? Where'd you get that? I mean, I must have did this for years. I'm sure they were like, oh my God, him again. But that's how I met Brian Mark Antonio, at the time they had a huge production. They had I think they were flying 40 par cans.
Wow.
I mean, doesn't that just hurt your back thinking about it?
Yeah. Not only that, but it makes me sweat just thinking about it.
And sweat, and think about the power it's sucking.
That's
you have 220s, two 220s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's funny you say that the Frogs were so spontaneous and funny on stage. There's not a single time that I'm around Brian Mark Antonio that I'm not pissing my pants laughing.
Oh,
still to this
hilarious.
day, I mean, and he's not even on stage anymore. And I still it's the second I see him to the second I leave, I'm crying, I'm laughing so hard because he's that funny all the time. Never shuts it off. It's great.
When I played in the band, when I was in the Runts with him, when the Frogs broke up, he asked me to play bass. So we would travel with him a lot because we worked 4 or 5 nights a week, and this is like every week. And I can remember I had a part-time gig at a golf course on the bass, and we would go and play the Lake Theater. It started at 11, so we would leave at about 8, maybe 7:30, because it's better part of 3 hours up. We would play till 3. I would get in my car and drive home and be to work at 7.
Oh,
yeah. Work, my 6-7 hour day, go home, eat, crash, get up, drive back to Lake George 4 nights in a row.
Wow. Oh my God.
But this is the work we had back then. We played in
Sure.
Schuylerville. There was just and Brian at the time, because of the Frogs, that was sort of what got me hooked up with DMR out of Syracuse,
Yeah,
because
rather
that was another thing back then with Utica bands. Only the best bands got to work with DMR at the time.
Right.
They had the Frogs, they had Alex Starr, they had 805, they had Mr. Ed. So you were always trying to work your way up to do that, And Brian had all those connections. So after I played, that band only lasted 6 months, and Brian was so busy that he actually told me, he said, why don't you, like, who's a great singer? Who's a great drummer? Who do we get? So it was me and him, and I literally went and found Bruce Evans from a band called Jimmy Bizarre, who was just starting to break. The band was pretty good, but he was phenomenal. He could sing Mickey Thomas stuff. He could sing the Journey stuff like effortlessly, kind of like Crimmins, right?
Yeah,
just
right.
had that up there.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy named Jerry Ruddy, a Utica native, who had been in the band Powerhouse, and he was a showman, with the sticks. And so, I told Brian about these guys. He approached them. Brian had the clout. We had a band, and then we went to work. And it's funny you talk about 220, because we played the Palmer House one time, and they had to tap in. And this is still makes me just, I marvel at this. So Buddy Love, the roadie, he'd go in, take the screwdriver, pull the panel up. This is for a business that's a restaurant, has fryers, and, there's probably 200 amp service coming in, maybe more. And then they'd take those big cables and click into that box. And, they had the rubber gloves on and the boots. And one night he went in and something was reversed in that box, and he shut off the whole block.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The whole block went down. So needless to say, we didn't play that night.
Yeah.
But that's what bands back in the day. I mean, that's how you sort of knew you were one of those bands. You had a 220 tap, and they weren't cheap either. Basically, you're buying the service for a house,
right,
and putting it on a spool and throwing it in a truck, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we we were at the tail end of that, like, because we were part of the overlap. Like, we started in '94, so like we were part of the overlap where the end of the old and in with the new was coming, and like I got to experience some of those shows, and like I was always in the early days, it was always, don't talk to the sound guy because he's angry all the time, and if you don't want to cry, you don't talk to the sound guy. Don't talk to the light guy because he's out of his goddamn mind, So and that's how it was, because the light guy would come in, he'd have hair down to his back, and he'd come in with his tap. He'd go ask the owner of the bar, "Where's the kitchen? I need the breaker box." And the owner of the bar, a lot of those guys didn't know what the hell he was talking about. They're like, this way, and he would bring that spool back, and I mean, the guys that I saw never used rubber gloves or anything. They just went back there and went like this, and it was in. All right, guys, we got power. Let's go. And meanwhile, the owner's back there going, what the hell just happened? Holy shit. But I mean, now you don't see that much anymore, but I'm glad that I got to experience a little bit of the old days, for myself, before it all stopped.
Well, it was the Wild West. I remember walking into 4 Acres and seeing the New York Flyers and seeing 16 Marshall cabinets across the back wall.
Oh, wow.
This isn't a club that holds maybe 300 people if we all stand sideways, but it was, man, to be a teenager and see that kind of hardware up there, it was so exciting. Flash pots, confetti cannons. I remember Jerry Krause one time, God bless him, he called me and he said, "Hey, Dylan's at the Stanley. Do you want these tickets? I have a couple of tickets." And, I've always tried to dig into Dylan. I appreciate him for what he is. It's a lot like when I met Doug Thaler. I remember, we got to talk about him too, in Los Angeles.
Yes, definitely.
And he was managing at the time Bon Jovi and Motley Crue and the Scorpions. And I remember he took me to lunch. I was so nervous because I had never met the guy. I walk into this management thing. He's got all these platinum gold records. And so we go to this foo-foo restaurant on the Sunset Strip. And so I'm like, I feel like I'm on a date. Like, I don't want to get food on my face, whatever. And he looks at me and goes, "Hey, Mark," he goes, "You know this band REM?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, Do you have any of their stuff? I go, "Yeah, I've listened to their stuff." He goes, "Do you get it?" He goes, "Because I bought all the albums." He goes, "I don't get it." So Dylan was a little still that way for me. Sometimes I'll put an album on. I go, I understand why this is iconic. And then other times I'm like, why is anybody listening to this? Why? A lot of words in this song. God forbid I had to learn one. But anyway, Jerry says to me, he goes, "Do you want tickets?" And I'm like, "No, I really don't want to. I don't want. I love, I'll listen to it, but I want to be entertained. Do you have any Rob Zombie tickets?
Yeah, right.
I want to see somebody blow something up, right?
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
the entertainment part is important to me.
Yeah,
I want to be entertained.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you can't just see a guy standing out there singing. I mean, I guess there's a lot of people that dig it now, but I mean, there's some of my favorite shows I've been to were hard rock shows, heavy metal shows that I've been to, and I confess I don't really listen to that often. You know what I mean? But I've gone to shows with people, and they put on a show, like you said. There's all this stuff happening. They're jumping around the stage like maniacs. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh my God, that's cool. I wish I had half that energy. You know what I mean? But then when you get there, I guess playing out, you would have to agree with this, right? That playing out like you could be, oh my God, my back's sore today. Oh, my legs hurt, this and that. And then the second the lights go up and you're on that stage, it's like you're 18 again. You know what I mean? And nothing else matters. It's just, I don't know.
It's that adrenaline rush that kept me in.
For sure.
When you were lucky enough to open for a national act. I remember we opened for Foghat, nicest guys in the world. Yeah. I listened to a tape afterwards. It's like we were playing like 3 times. We were so pumped up.
Yeah.
And the drummer, Sam Madonia at the time, he's like, he's just as pumped up as us. We needed him to hold us back. And we're like, and it's like,
oh yeah.
but you're excited. I mean,
I always love listening to those tapes back. You know what I mean? When you open up for somebody big, you listen to those tapes back, and you think, man, we had a great show. And then you're playing something like, you're playing something that's 4 on the floor or whatever, and all of a sudden and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we played it that fast. It didn't feel like that fast when we played it.
Pumped up.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, I want to back up a little bit. You mentioned Doug Thaler, and you went out to lunch with him. Did he have lunch with you because of the fact that you were from Central New York and there was that Central New York tie, or how did that become?
Well, this is one of the things that I put on what I sent you, because I really did want to talk about him. Because if you're not aware of him, you really should be, because he should be he's a legend. First of all, he was in a band called Elf with Ronnie Dio.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
So he went to Cortland College, and that's where they met. And I guess I'll send you an interview that I found the other day with him. But Dio was like the biggest thing on the local circuit. This is in the 60s. And Doug got in a band with him. And the way I met Doug was Paul Adderman was selling cars. And my sound guy, Andre Caruncio, God bless him, he's been gone for a long time, but he was the best. And he said, I had Never Too Old, my first single. And back then, if you put out original music and it was good enough, you would get in rotation on a radio station. We were in rotation on OUR, in rotation on Rock 107.
Yeah.
95X, not rotation 95X because it's Syracuse, but we were getting played. And it was a different time. And Andre had met this guy, it was his neighbor, and he goes, Mark, this guy knows this manager, and he wants to know if it's all right to send him a copy of the record. And I'm like, yeah, okay, manager, sure. So he sends him the record, and then about 2 weeks later, I get a call from Paul Adderman. He goes, hey, this is Paul, and Andre, and he goes through the whole story, and he says, Doug really likes your song. He goes, you want to come down sometime? He goes, I'll call him and introduce you. And so I go down to Davidson Chevrolet. He's selling cars there. This is Paul Adderman. And Jenny and I go down there, and I think maybe Andre was with us. And, we do the hellos and all that. And he dials up the phone, and Doug Thaler picks up the phone, and he says, oh, guess who I'm sitting here with? Doug says to Paul, he goes, Russ Ballard, who wrote like Winning for Santana and all these great songs. And I'm like, and he goes, hey, Russ, say hello. So Russ Ballard says hello. And I'm sitting there like, I'm in like, this is the land of make-believe, right?
How old are you at this time?
Probably 25. Maybe.
Yeah, okay.
So Doug says, I'd like to stay in touch with you. Could you send me some more songs? So I walk out of there I'm like, I don't even know what to think.
Yeah.
First of all, at first I thought it was a fake, because the guys I played in this band Night Train with, they would do something like that. These were crazy bands, So anyway, believe me, they would. But anyway, so I get home and I start this, this phone relationship with Doug Thaler. And again, he had Bon Jovi, the Scorps,
Motley Crue.
Motley Crue, thank you. And he had a band called The Unforgiven. And we were packing the clubs that we were playing then. And he said, I said, should we come out there? And he goes, Mark, I've got this band, The Unforgiven. They're playing and nobody. I've got them going up the West Coast. They're not doing anything. He goes, you're doing better than they are. So the whole thing goes on, and he says to me, he goes, do you ever write anything heavier? I'm like, yeah, I can write something heavier. So that's how I wrote that song, Jump to the Good Side, which was on the Dillinger cassette.
Yeah.
Because he wanted something heavier. I had Rocky sing it because he was more suited to it. And, that was the thing about Dillinger is I sang, Rocky sang, Joel sang. So we kind of had a lot like your band, Justin, now. You kind of have the bases covered. You got, these people singing in different ranges. And as a band that's trying to work, to me, that is always what separates, the great bands from the good ones is the vocals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's a ton of great players. So that's how I started the relationship with Doug Thaler. And I went out there and I went to lunch, and then he went to Japan with with Motley Crue, and then they got arrested for something over there. But he called me, and I had a friend that I went to Berkeley with. His name was John Truby, and he was writing reviews for this magazine called Music Connection, which was a pretty big deal in Los Angeles. Out of all these millions of people in Los Angeles, I know this one guy that's writing reviews. So we play this band, we play this club called Raji's. And if you ever look on the back of the Nirvana album Bleach, and you see Cobain is over the drum kit like this, he throws himself in the drum kit. That was at Raji's. It was an old Indian restaurant on Hollywood Boulevard that they turned into a punk club. Wow. So we do this gig at Raji's or FM station or somewhere in North Hollywood. And John comes out, and John Truby is out of his mind. When I was at Berkeley, he would make these cassettes. He would prank call people. Look him up, Trubee. You will be entertained, I promise you. So anyway, he wrote this review, and it literally made us look like we walked on water.
Wow. And
Doug Thaler calls me like 2 weeks after it came out, and he goes, listen, I'm going to the crew with Japan. He goes, whose blank did you suck to get this review in this magazine? And I'm like, Doug, I said, I told you the band's good. I'm not going to let on, Mm-hmm. And so, but by the time he came back from Japan, Joel had left. Joel was married and had kids when he went out there. So it was a lot harder. And it's funny you said you don't listen to hard rock. Well, you have a kid, Justin. Those days are gone. You want your mental peace.
Yeah, so, exactly.
So anyway, it never really quite lined up with Doug again. And then the next time I heard anything from him, Sam Madonia was working at the Turning Stone. And he called me one day because Sam was a great deal maker, but he didn't know a lot about music. In fact, one day he calls me, he goes, hey, I got a call. He goes, what do you think? He goes, they want this guy, Kenny Wayne Shepherd. I can get a date for him. He goes, do you know him? I go, yeah, I am aware. He goes, well, should I get it? I said, well, what are they asking? He goes, like $14,000. I said, yeah, get it. And of course, it sold out the showroom. But I used to go to lunch with Sam once a month, and we would talk over, like Pat Benatar wanted all new drapes, like all new linens in a room. So it was fascinating to me to hear that side.
Oh, the rider list, yeah.
But so where was I?
Sam Madonia making deals for you.
Oh yeah. But so the Truby thing, so the Dillinger thing never quite lined up. And then I got a call we had played Stittville for like 4 or 5 years running with both Night Train and Dillinger. And the year before we left, we had 6,700 people. And that's paid. Wow. They used to fence that whole field days, and it was the Flyers and Icewater Mansion. And it was a big deal. That was like the biggest gig of the year.
Yeah.
And I got a call from Lee Broomfield, who ran that at the time. And he said, can you guys come back and do this? And at the time then, it was just Rocky and I. So we started auditioning like everybody we could. And I was lucky because Rocky's as good a drummer as he is a bass player.
Yeah.
So he played bass in Night Train. He played drums in Dillinger. And so he can go either way. But we're just like, we're bringing in these like these literally psych cases off the street. They're coming in, and we're paying for audition time. Because you can't rehearse in your apartment in Los Angeles. You have to rent a place. It was like $18 an hour.
Oh,
so you're renting these places, and these people are coming in one at a time. You're going, oh my God, it's a Bo Diddley beat. Gung, 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 gung. It's like, what? It's like, anyway, we luckily.
Man, who's Bo Diddley, man?
Yeah, there you go. So then in that same Music Connection magazine, I see the drummer for Ambrosia, Burley Drummond, is advertising he's for hire. So I call him. I'm like, I got this big gig coming up. What would it cost me to have you come do it, learn the material? He gave me a price. I think it was pretty reasonable if I paid the airfare. I think it was like $500 or something. So that was a maybe. Finally, the last run of auditions, we got this guy, Kyle Seidenbaum, and he was the original drummer for the Motels. Yeah. Which Kids was a big band back in the day. Yep. And he came back and did the gig with us. So we barely slipped out of that one. But
Sure.
But that's the Doug Thaler story. But he's a legend. He had Vertical Horizon for a while. He was managing Art Garfunkel most recently. I think he's pretty much out of the business now. But he was a totally down-to-earth guy. And he's from Rome, New York.
Wow. It's amazing. I never knew that until who was on the show that mentioned it.
Oh God,
Roy Costin. It was it was Roy. When Roy
he
mentioned
commented on it. Yeah,
and I had no idea. And like I have known of Doug Thaler just through like the Motley Crue,
sure,
the Scorpions, and like he managed all those big time. Him and Doc McGee, they were partners on a lot of that stuff too.
Well, and as he would tell me, I go, "How'd you get in business with Doc McGee?" Well, Doc McGee made a ton of money doing God knows what.
Drugs.
and brought it into the music business.
Yeah,
sure. And that's why Thaler hooked up with him, because if you read anything about the Crew, they say the band could have the talent, but Justin, you said something last week about musicians having the drive, and that is there's a lot of guys that I know in Utica, Rome, anywhere else they're really great players.
Yeah.
But do they have the drive? Can they take the beat? And not everybody is foolish enough to take the beating sometimes.
No.
People want to go do something else.
Well, a lot of these kids too, Mark, they don't have to pay their dues anymore. They can become YouTube stars. Somebody hand picks them out from a YouTube video they saw that's got 6 million views on it. They hand pick them. All of a sudden, they're fronting a band that they just met 2 weeks ago. They rehearsed for a couple weeks, and then bam, it's like they're on the road and they get rider lists. They get whatever they want. They get their own tour bus. You know what I mean? They don't know what it's like to actually
come on in, Frank.
Yeah, right. They don't know what it's actually like to pay their dues and go through, lugging your own gear, setting up the PA yourself. You know what I mean? And it's sad because and what that does is it like we were just saying, it takes away the drive. There's no drive to do it because it's like, oh, I'll just sit in front of my camera, strum on my guitar, and if I get 6 million views, then I'm good to go. I get nothing. I
make money.
I look good. Let's say you got good hair or something like that, or you make some kind of goofy thing at your backdrop. You know what I mean? And you get views. Then that's how you make it these days. There's no. You don't audition for anything. I mean, The Voice, the American Idol, that's all bullshit anyway. Everybody knows that. You know what I mean? It's all producer driven.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, they'll have a rider in a new band this year, and then 2 years from now they'll be selling storm windows.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because they don't have a career. They don't get a career. They just get that big. I mean, how many people, like you said, The Voice, American Idol? I mean, how many Kelly Clarksons are there? One?
Yeah.
I mean, how many people sustain a career out of that, right? And it is amazing because the power of national television. But look how fast it goes away, right?
Yeah, there's a small window too. If you get to a certain point on these shows, there's a small window that you have to better your career from where it was. Like you have to you get into where you're getting you're on national television once a week, for let's say a month. Okay, when you're done with that, you have I'd say maybe a month to book a tour or do something where you can actually put yourself out there saying, I'm Justice Smithson from American Idol, you know what I mean? And I was on season whatever, you know what I mean? And then you do it, and if you don't keep doing it and keeping your name relevant, then within a month you're gone. And then nobody even knows who you are anymore. You can say, oh, I was on, season 2 of this show, and they're already on season 30. You know what I mean? And it's like you're the old guy now. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't know. I dig a lot what the older artists are doing. Like the Eagles paved the way with the Hell Freezes Over tour. You know what I mean? When they did that in '94, that was like immediately. You know, all these other guys that are losing money from records now because the record company's taking all the money from everything, the Spotify's, the Napster, everything that was going on there, and they realized that they could still make good money being on the road because it was actually a call for that style of music again. Like, you know, for all those bands to come back and to make it, you know, do tours again. You know, you see all these, 60-year-olds running around the stage again, and people were loving it. You know what I mean? And, I guess that's really all you got for music anymore is to go see them live. I mean, that's the only way to support the artist, really. You know, we were talking last week about Spotify and stuff. You make $2, off of like 2 million views or whatever.
Well, the game's about to change.
Yeah.
It really is, especially with Kings of Leon releasing the NFT now. The new token chip that's coming out on the blockchain, it's all going to change, especially blockchain technology is here to stay, and I'm hoping that more artists start drifting towards that. They just sold their album, and on the album you get a physical album, you get a cartoon that was attached to the album, and there's like posters, a couple other different things. They sold it on the blockchain, and they made a fortune.
I've never heard of this. I've never heard of this.
It's going to be a new wave.
Yeah.
Yeah, so check it out. It's all cryptocurrency type of thing.
Oh, sure, okay.
So it's all based on that. It's like the new way of they're spending money, but it also it engages the hardcore fan, because anybody can go, and this actually it takes away from the free streams too, because now if artists start, and we'll start talking about this a little bit more, because I'm really starting to dive into it a little bit, because I want to start doing a token for the D and a bunch of other different things. But anyways, it takes the hardcore fan and it puts them on their radar and it puts them up front on the platform instead of these guys stealing it from like Spotify or whatever. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. Yeah.
So you got a direct link to the artist, and I'll get into it more too, especially when I do more research on it. But Kings of Leon just made a fortune.
Dude, we gotta. There's a ton of comments though we got to get to.
There is a ton of comments. Oh my God, I haven't been checking. I'm sorry for not checking on the comments. If you are on Facebook or any other social media platforms, please click share. Help us spread the word of Local Music Monday, and help spread the word of Mark Werchowski, our good friend out there in Hawaii, who's all nice and warm. Mark Barnes is saying howdy. Colin Pezdek, hello. Hey, guys. Mark, are you familiar with the Iron Butterfly album Ball? Just looking at it now in my room in 1969. The LP is in great shape, no scratches. Are you familiar with that album, Mark?
I am familiar with Iron Butterfly. One of the great things about Facebook is I friended this Eric Barnett who's playing guitar. Iron Butterfly still has a touring band.
Yeah.
So I kind of stay in touch with that. I had Inagata Davida. I had that album when I was a kid. The drum solo was a big deal. Of course, now I don't have the patience to listen to it. But back then it was, did you hear this album? There's like a 10-minute drum solo on it. But yeah, I'm familiar with the Iron Butterfly, yeah.
Aloha, Mark, from Jim Bob. Hi, Mark.
That's Spencer Morgan's dad, Jim Morgan.
Ah, Jim, good to hear from you, Jim.
Aloha, Jim.
Fred Walters, all you need is jumper cables and tap on the main lugs for when you're doing when you're plugging in the breaker panel. That's funny.
Yeah, and big balls.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
Big balls. Our unofficial sponsor of Local Music Monday, Mr. Tim Moyer, is saying Roscoe would have tapped into any type of power line, and that's true. I've seen Roscoe tap into pretty much anything.
Yeah, he would have climbed the pole.
Oh, no, I have no doubt.
The telephone pole, strapped on some jumper cables to the main line and been done with it.
Old school.
Yeah, for sure.
Old school.
Yeah, if anybody can do it, Roscoe can do it.
Yep, you know it.
John Caprero asked Mark if he remembers Electric Scene in Rome. He used to play drums there. Mike Seekin's place. Do you remember Electric Scene?
I don't remember. The club was before my time, or at least before I could, go into a club. Mm-hmm. But Seekin's was down, I believe, on West Dominic Street, where the Capitol is now. It used to be, I think, a furniture store. So I know the location. I don't know the club, though.
Mike Mizgala is saying Brian Thomas and I tapped into a few panels. The power going down during the show just sucks.
yeah. Both those guys, God bless those guys. They were both roadies. Brian Thomas for both Night Train and Dillinger. And then Mike came on later in Dillinger. Yeah, there's some road stories for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I am sure, man. And Jerry Krause wants to know what he missed. Oh, you missed a lot.
Yeah, dude. Well, we got Jerry and we got Genesee Joe are both here. So 92.7 The Drive is in the house right
Hey,
now.
guys.
I love it. I love it. Great.
Yeah.
Locally owned and operated, and pretty much the only one waving the flag on the local dial for the local area music scene. So keep doing what you're doing. Roy Cost
Yeah,
and
both those guys.
Roy's
I was just
checking
gonna
it.
say both those guys have supported local music for a long time. So
Those
blow out
guys-
of them.
Yes, we owe a lot to both of them, if not for any of them. I mean, there's so many bands out there that wouldn't get a star or would never even be heard of if it's not for the Dr. Jerry Krause and,
That's right.
of course, our good friend Genesee Joe. Freak nasty, I like to call Genesee Joe.
You were talking
I won't
about
ask.
tokens. You were talking about tokens. Jerry Krause goes, I remember the tokens. Didn't they sing The Lion Sleeps Tonight?
It's the whole new world, man. I'm telling you, the whole new way of music and the way artists can start making money is through blockchain technology, and we'll get into that. I'm sure
interested.
a lot. A lot of people remember in Dillinger and Night Train. Roy Costa remember in both bands. He was in Ardent back in the day. Did you guys ever have double bills with Ardent and Night Train or Dillinger?
You know, I've never met Roy. I've
no?
known about him. No, but forever, because I remember when he recorded in Hawk Rock, and I know, his band, Chuck Heath. I worked with him at the Utica School District. Hello to Chuck out there. They were in a band. Chuck was in a band called Bruised Bandit, who was doing a lot of work at the studio. And when I recorded Christmas in the Valley,
I wanted to talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you
yeah,
for
Bob
reminding me.
asked, he goes, can these guys come down? And I had never met them, and they came down and they participated. And I've known Chuck since then, but never got to meet Roy. But I really enjoyed his show when you guys did the show with him. It was very informative. I learned a lot.
Me too. Doc is playing these bands on the Recovery Room. We play the Christmas song heavily too. Let's talk about the Christmas song. It was called Christmas in the Mohawk Valley. Now you wrote that. Is that correct? That's your
I
produced it, everything?
Yeah, like everything good, and I think Justin will probably attest to this. It came fast. I think I wrote the song in one swipe, probably 2-3 in the morning, and so I have to do something with this. So I thought, well, I don't want to self-promote here. I just lost you guys. Hold on here.
You lost us? We have
Yeah.
you.
Okay, good. All right. So I thought, well, let's do a charity. So I called Nancy McElwain at the Stephen Swan Society, and she was up. God bless her. She could have said no. She didn't know me. I said, I wrote this song. Can I send it to you? Anyway, it came together really quick. We went into the studio. I remember Jerry Krause got involved, and Jerry goes, well, I'll take care of the food and stuff. And man, he got everybody to donate. We had pizza boxes, and I think, Saranac supplied the drinks for the day, and we had a ton of people. But you know what, the beauty of that, and even when I recorded Never Too Old, it came together really fast. So the politics were minimal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was important, because it was a total good vibe. It really, I can honestly say, I think that song came through me, because that's not what I do. You know what I mean? I'm a rock guy. But that song, Liebing told me one time, he goes, that's going to be your legacy, that song.
Yeah.
And it
It
probably
is.
will be. But I'm proud of that. That's okay. That's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a great time, and Jerry was on it, and we had a bunch of other TV people and radio people, and it really was I think it was a really long day. We had Bob working that day, but we had to bring people in like 15 at a time to do those backgrounds at the end, because the studio, you couldn't put everybody in at once and record. But people came up in shifts, and John was a big help, arranging that last part on the song. We all know how talented he is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And then I ended up getting 2 ASCAP awards for that song too, which I didn't put in the time. I forgot about it after I sent you that. I didn't even mention that.
I'll have to add that to my notes.
For those that don't know, Christmas in the Mohawk Valley was a collaboration of many different artists at the time. So what's that, 1991? What was the year on that? Right around 1991?
Yep.
And how did you pick the artist to join you in that song? Was it all
okay?
handpicked?
So, some people got left out, unfortunately. I remember we asked Bonamassa to be on at the time. He was out of town. Bob asked some people, like I said, Bruce Bandit. I know those guys at the time, but some people kind of slipped in, but mostly it was the musicians that I did know.
Yeah.
And I just called them up. I said, "What are you doing Sunday? Can you come down and do?" I mean, it was really by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
But I really think that's why it came out so good, because it was just kind of divine intervention. It was just sort of meant to happen. But the bigger trick of that was keeping that thing on the air for 30 years.
Yeah.
To me, that's the biggest accomplishment. I remember my wife and I being on the floor probably about 12, 15 years in, razor blading the covers myself because I didn't need to print 1,000 CDs. And now you can do small runs on CDs. But back then it was like, you got to do 1,000 CDs. Like you, Justin, I got some of my own CDs sitting at my house too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So, we don't need that many. So we would hand make them. We would burn them and we figured out a way to get them printed on. But then later on, the demand started picking back up. So we started printing them back up again. But 30 years. I mean, that's
just amazing.
And I got to say right now, thank you to all the radio people that supported that song for 30 years and the people, I mean, I still have people say, I play it every Christmas. I mean, it touches you after a while, especially because I have grandkids, it's like, they're going to hear that song. That's a pretty big deal.
As a matter of fact, Kevin Jeffrey is saying it right now, still listening to Christmas in the Mohawk Valley every year, still have the red cassette tape. And he's saying, hello, Mark, I haven't seen you in a while. So, yeah, people
I love
still,
it.
Yeah.
Hey.
What about, and you shot the video too. There's like a video that you could see. It's on YouTube, correct, Mark?
Yeah. Hey, Kevin. Well, here's the thing. So back then, the video cameras were like, can I get my hands in here? Like, they were huge. You had these big video cassettes, but we had 3 or 4 of them at the studio that day, just recording as it went. Mm-hmm. So I had, I think there were 2 hours at the time. So I had a box of like 8 or 9, 10 videotapes, and I didn't have any editing ability or anything like that. Then my oldest daughter went to Clarkson, and 20 years comes popping up, and we start talking about it, and it's like, can you put this together? Can we put a video together? And she did that. My daughter, Alexis, love you, Lex. Love you, Des. She put that together, and she actually synced it up manually. Like usually when you record music, you have SMPTE code. So you can the machine, she locked that up. And she locked it up good. I mean, if you look at it, it's in sync, and it's all done by hand, and it's all done from like tons and tons of sources. So that was just another, a good thing happens with a good song, And again, how'd that happen,
Hey, you're getting a message out there. A certain 3-year-old has sat through this entire show. Hi, Grandpa.
Hey, Delta. Delta.
How many grandkids do you have, Mark?
I have my 3-year-old Delta, and Alex, my daughter Alexis has Alex, and he's 2, and they're awesome.
Ah, great! I bet they can't wait for Grandpa to get back to Central New York.
I'm trying. My thing is, I'm trying to get them to come out here.
There you go.
So, I'm campaigning right now to get my youngest daughter Odessa and Delta, her daughter, to come out here. So guys, come on. I'll buy the tickets. Come on.
Can't pass that up, Odessa.
I know, right?
That's right.
Can't pass that up. Hey, do we expect you to maybe, if things are getting back to a somewhat of a normal routine around here in Central New York, when you do come back, will you be out playing gigs at all in CNY or?
I'm open to that. I wasn't gigging at all, and then I got this message one day on Facebook, and it was Dave Laskowski, and he goes, "Do you know any good country guitar players?" It's like, no, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, you do that? It's like, I'd like to play, I like to play.
Right.
So, Yeah, I did that for 3 years. I would love to play. If I've had a couple of people talk to me about maybe doing something for the summer because I probably come back here next winter, so I can't really commit to doing something long term.
Yeah.
But summer's prime time back there. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So listen, anybody's got any ideas? Guitar for hire.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, Mark, do you have any platforms you stream your music on? Can people check out some of the music from either Dillinger or Night Train or any of that?
I have a YouTube channel, and again, my daughter Alexis has recorded a lot of things over the years. So fortunately, I have copies of most of my original material. So that's on YouTube under Werchowski, just my last name. Yeah,
just Werchowski. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation, man.
Oh, yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time out of your morning. I know it's early and you got up a little early for us to do this, but really thank you so
I'm
much.
glad to do it.
Hey, Bud, can you show our audience your view that you have every day? You mind taking us out on the balcony? Can you do that?
No, I could do that. Hold on.
Yeah.
All right.
This is nice, man. Check out where Mark is staying. You got to see this. Is gorgeous. Honolulu.
Oh God.
There's Honolulu.
Okay, so we're pretty high up. I'm going to give you the. So that's the.
Oh yeah, you're up there.
Wow.
Look, Justin, that's a palm tree. In case you didn't know.
Oh wow.
So that's downtown Honolulu.
That's gorgeous.
If you can see that. And then, of course, you see the ocean. And that's Waikiki.
Beautiful.
That's just awesome.
Just leave
Good
the key
stuff.
under the mat for me, please, Mark. I'll be there in a couple days.
Yeah.
Listen, man, you got to come out here. You guys should make a point, and I'll definitely show you around. I got to tell you, it's like life's short.
Yeah.
Don't wait. Do
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
You're right. It's definitely on a bucket list.
Oh, yeah.
Before we get out of here, Jerry Krause wants to know some memories of you playing with Al Nathan.
I'm glad he brought that up. So I started playing with Dave Riegler, and he's gone. And actually, that whole band is gone. It was Tom Moonen on drums, Dave Riegler on bass, and Al Nathan, and they're all passed. Al was the best. Dare says to me, we're playing, and he says, "You should come play with this piano player I play with." I said, "All right." So we go to JFK. He was the music teacher at JFK. We slip in the back door, and Al's there. Okay, well, we don't rehearse. We're going to rehearse once, and then I got a bunch of gigs. I think we played every place in Old Forge. He knew everybody.
Oh yeah.
And, he had the bakery up there, and I'd bring my girls up, and we'd play the lakefront, and then Al would go open the bakery up on the way home, give my girls donuts, and they were living for it. It was the best.
Sure.
But he used to have these two big bull mastiffs. So as we're always taking the PA out of the truck, it's always covered in dog hair. There's another memory, Al. But I loved Al. He was the best. And I remember I was teaching at Martin Luther King School the day somebody told me he passed, and it was just like sad stuff. But you know what? He lived it the way he wanted to. He was a good man.
For sure.
He worked his ass off. That was one of the most hardest working guys you'd ever meet.
I don't know when he slept.
I don't think he ever slept.
I don't think he ever slept. I mean, he'd get up and go make the donuts and then come back, teach at school, then drive to the gig, play, come home. By the time he got done with the gig, it was time to make the donuts again.
When I was teaching at Utica, he goes, "Mark," he goes, "you got it figured out now. You got the day job with the benefits, you got the guitar teaching, and you're in my band." He goes, "You got it all laid out now."
Which means you're not going to sleep.
Right.
Pretty much. He used to actually rent a Jetstream, not a Jetstream, an Airstream trailer.
Airstream, right. Yep.
And that when you go up into Old Forge, right before you get there, you go down that hill, there's that trailer park to the right. Something falls. He had a trailer in there, and that's where he would sleep in between.
Wow.
So if he went up, that was his little hideout.
Huh. Interesting. I never knew that.
No, me either.
Never knew that. Definitely a legend, man. And it was a sad day when he passed.
Absolutely.
Well, Mark, we got to get together when you come back to Central New York.
Yeah,
man. It'd
please.
be great to see you. And thank you so much again for taking
Love
time
to.
out of your day and getting up in the morning and having coffee with us.
We'll love to. And listen, congratulations, you guys, on this award. I know it's a big deal, but to me, the big deal is you highlighting local music like you do. I commend you guys. I think it makes a lot of difference. I think people are informed about things they didn't know about.
Sure.
And things that are coming up. And I think, the awards are nice, but you guys doing the show, that's the shit.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man. That means a lot to hear from you. I really, really appreciate that. And for us, too, we learn a lot, too, on this show. There's stuff that, man, I learned today about Doug Thaler that I wanted to learn about. And there's a bunch of different stuff. So every week, it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we do it.
There's a lot there. There's a lot of history there. And I hate to say it, but you better start doing your interviews like from oldest to youngest, because you wait. Some of these guys aren't going to be there though. I mean,
you're right.
Sure.
And a lot of this stuff's going to get lost. You know what I mean?
Who would be your guys for Local Music Hall of Fame? We talk about it often. Who would be your guys? Who would be your pick?
Okay, so this is a subject of conversation around here. Now, I think, first of all, I know how Utica works, so you better set some criteria here, or everybody's cousin's going to be in this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? No, seriously, because I've had guys on my road crew, like I hear names pop up sometimes, and I'm like, have they even done 100 gigs?
Oh.
Like that would be a criteria for me. Is there's been some longevity. Because we all know there's tons of talented people. We all had that girl in high school that sang in the play. That doesn't mean she should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or whatever. But definitely Doug Thaler. Joe Bonamassa, who I don't know that I've ever met anybody that's worked as hard.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just given up so much to do what he does. I guess you'd have to include, nobody's mentioned the guys in Mo, and this is a national band.
Oh, right.
Right out of New Hartford.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think those guys, and Fran Cosmo, who was, with a national band. Those are the ones that come to mind to me, because there's been a lot of great guys that played bars and stuff like that, and that matters. But I mean, you also got to figure, is having original material figure into this? Does does it? I remember I had students come in and they go, "Oh, I don't play covers. I play originals." And I'd be like, "Are any of them any good?"
Yeah.
So I mean, writing a song is an accomplishment. Writing a good song's a whole nother accomplishment, and you can't really judge that yourself. But people will let you know.
Oh yeah, they will.
If you play an original song out, and people, I remember Night Train. We used to try to slip them between our two strongest songs. Yeah. Our cover song, because you want to give the song a chance, because they've heard White Wedding 4 million times. Sure. They ain't heard my song 4 million times. But yeah, I would think it's going to be, you're going to have to narrow it down, or maybe like there'll be a place for club owners or managers or just musicians or just songwriters. But I think if you can maybe, because it's going to get, you guys are in for a bunch. It's going to get to be a mess.
Well, that's why I'm hoping that the committee that we end up putting together is we'll be able to, I mean, and I think that there should be like a, a way that people can campaign for somebody that they feel belongs in there. You know what I mean? If they get enough signatures, maybe, of somebody that they, you know what I mean? I mean, just do something where, like, prove to us why you think these people should be in. If it's somebody that we haven't, highlighted yet.
Then
you know what I mean?
Political.
I guess so, but I mean, but maybe there's some people that we haven't heard of, that we need to know about, and like what their accomplishments are. I mean, I think that's important as well. I mean, there's people out there we might not know, but your dad might know, or my dad might know. You know what I mean? It's.
Well, I like the sentiment of sort of a people's choice kind of thing, but I can already hear the wheels turning of people figuring out how to stack that deck already.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
For sure. But
yeah, I think it's an admirable thing to do, for sure.
Yeah, we eventually we'll get there. We talk about it a lot, but we haven't had any action yet. But eventually,
we'll get there.
It's not like we're not busy. So.
Right? Yeah, sure.
But Mark, well, you know what?
Go ahead,
your show is a testament to that. You're archiving a lot of that right now, so that's a good start.
Thanp you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say thank you for hanging out with us, man. This has been a great conversation, and hit us up when you get back to Central New York. And
we'll hang out here. We'll have to do another interview here when you get back.
Come in the studio, hang out.
Sounds like fun, man. I got like 14 more pages, guys. So we have to do it.
we didn't get into the 90s.
I know, right?
I was gonna say, when we started, I was gonna say, we could just cut off the part before you guys were born.
Yeah.
And that would fit it.
But you started right in 1981. I was like, oh God, wait a minute. October 1981. I was 3 months old.
I was 6.
I remember you guys then.
Yeah, right.
Thank you again
thanks,
so much.
Mark.
Also, thank you to EJA Moving Services, attorney Dave Longaretta, Utica Coffee, Saranac Brewery, and Joey's at 307. Yeah, this has been fun. Great conversation today. I love doing Local Music Monday. Congratulations, Justin. Show the award one more time. Let's. There you go. Look at his smile. Did you see the smile on his face?
I know, it's like purpose smile. That was that day. That night when after he won, I'm like walking around the studio like this. I couldn't stop. It was funny,
It was fun, man. Congratulations, brother. And also make sure I picked up Gary's Sammy the other day, so make sure you get that over.
I got a message from him. We'll talk about that after, but
yeah, for sure.
Mark, aloha, brother.
Aloha, Mark.
All right. Aloha.
See you guys later. Later.
See you soon.